This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Sunset Safari here in the western fringes of the Kruger National Park. We're currently in the staff village of Inga's house. There is Hosanna, the male leopard, sitting next to the geezer. This is not a shot we would normally open with, but to show you how habituated to human beings this leopard has become. Now, before we get into the situation that has evolved over here, allow me to tell you, of course, that you must talk to us using the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. Otherwise, you can use the chat stream on YouTube. My name is James Hendry, and I am sitting on a vehicle with Senzo Mkhize, who is the camera operator for the afternoon. Now, this situation is not ideal, and it's not ideal for a number of reasons. The first reason is, of course, that, well, a gas bottle next to a leopard is not the best picture to be demonstrating of the wilderness. The second is, of course, that this gives a very false sense of what this leopard feels and thinks about human beings. Yes, he doesn't mind being around us, but there are no people here at the moment. He has no inkling, I don't think, that a lot of people live here, because, of course, there's nobody living here at the moment. There's just one person coming in and out from time to time. And while he's not that comfortable with people on foot, we saw him on foot this morning, and he likes to move away, this doesn't present a sort of human threat to him. But he represents a threat to human beings, of course, if they start to think of him as being like a pet. Now, I mean, that's not exactly like your dog would lie in the shade outside your house, isn't it? That is a wild leopard. He's a completely wild leopard. He just happens to have grown up here, and so he's got no problem with this. Now, it's not that unusual for leopards to do this, of course. There's been a lot of stuff going around on social media of late of leopards in lodges. Well, there was one sitting on a chair at Singita, which was fantastic. Another mating pair sitting around another lodge. I'm not sure exactly where that was, but they were on the deck mating when the guests got up. So this is not entirely unusual. He's looking a little bit skinny, I must say. I think he needs to eat something. Let's just check where he goes. He might be going for a swim. There's a pool here. There he is. He's looking into Brent and Jamie's room. There's nobody here, so there's no danger to any human being. This is hilarious. It's hilarious, but as I keep trying to say to you, it is very important that we understand exactly what's happening here. That this is not a tame animal. Let's see if he pitches up this side. There he is. He's going to have a drink. Margarita, what we can do about this situation is lock the gate. There's a gate here. We need to have it fixed and make sure that it is shut all the time. He's now sitting on the pool deck. Hey, are you having a pool day, boy? Yes, of course you are. Imagine stepping out of your room to go and have a swim and finding Hosanna, the male leopard, sitting there. He'll be looking for squirrels now, I suspect. He definitely is in need of a good feed. What do they say about need being the father of necessity? How does the saying go? I think that his skinniness is going to make him kill something this evening, hopefully a nyala or a bushbuck. He's definitely... No, he's now going into the pool. Is he? He's not going to have a swim, surely. He's not going to actually get into the pool. I don't think we can drive through there. You think we can? We'll never get the roof. Oh, okay, well, we'll try. I can hear some Franklins shouting now. Is the aerial down? Are we looking all right that side? I can't go that side. Oh wait, there's some dumbbells in the way. Hang on a sec. That's some kind of wire chameleon. Okay, gecko, not a chameleon. All right, let's see. There he is at the pool. He's having a drink. Can we go? No, he's having a drink. This is most amusing. I just must keep reiterating, everybody, this is not a tame cat, and it is usual for leopards to do this. They do it at the lodges all the time, and this just happens to be a private home where a lodge might be. And so he's just come into the vicinity. And we've got a question from Kirsten, who says, is this a man-made waterhole? And the answer is, yes, it is. If he gets into the pool, then I'll probably fall out the car. I think he's seen a frog, or his reflection. Hosanna, do you think that this is acceptable behavior? Say my name, boy, you say what in the world? Well, quite, what in the world is going on here? For those of you who have just joined us, this is Hosanna the male leopard, 2.5 years old, completely habituated to human habitations, and he's come into this area because it's shady, there's water here, and so he's decided this would be a nice place for him to be. He is not tame. He is a completely wild leopard. And I'm hoping he's going to leave soon so that we can then close the gate and keep him out. Coming down here. No, don't lie down there. Get out. Go on. Out. Don't look at me like that either. Off you go. Come on. And a lot of you are worried about chlorine in the pool. Don't be worried about chlorine in the pool. It's not an issue. There's very little, and a little bit like that's not going to harm him at all. He wouldn't drink it if it felt poisonous to him. You need to press on now, my boy. Yes. Let's go across to Jamie. She will, of course, be returning fairly soon. And, well, she's going to have to live with Hosanna, quite possibly, and buy herself a very powerful torch so that she can see him.
Hosanna, I mean, I know you're eager for our return, but this is a little bit much. This is ridiculous. He's stealing my thunder. I was about to show you something really exciting, and it's still really exciting, but it's not quite Hosanna on the pool deck. A very good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to the Masai Mara portion of this sunrise safari, where we get to show you something that you won't see on Juma. Where's it gone? It's here somewhere. Promise. There it is. Haha. You wouldn't think it possible to lose a rhinoceros, but there you have it. A black rhino, and if I'm not mistaken, a baby black rhino too? Is that a little black rhino on the left of it? I think so. I think this must be the female with the calf that Taylor saw not so long ago. But you couldn't see the calf because, well, is that actually a calf or is it just its leg? I'm really struggling to see at this distance. Might just be its leg. I might have got overexcited there. Welcome to the Sunset Safari, where absolutely nothing apparently this afternoon is going to be normal. It'll just be James and myself this afternoon. Poor Manu unfortunately fell victim to an insect to the eye that has put him out of commission for the afternoon. He'll be fine. He's got eye drops. But at the moment he is squinting in much the same way this black rhino is. Our animals not renowned for their fantastic eyesight. In fact, are very short-sighted. Now, I think I made up the calf. I think I got slightly overexcited. I thought that perhaps if Hosanna was busy sunning himself on the Inga's pool deck, anything was possible. But apparently not quite anything. This is exactly why I've chosen to come this way. Because in my last few days in the Mara, I really wanted to spend some time with a rhino and share it with all of you, as I know that that opportunity may not present itself again in the foreseeable future. So there you have it. A lovely rhino with a very, very easily recognizable ear. Now, most of the reason that we're allowed to show these animals here in the Mara is because they're very closely monitored. And one of the ways in which they keep track of the individuals is to notch their ears. In other words, cut little triangles out of their ears. In this case, this bull, and it is a male because I recognize him by his ear now, he has a notch cut out of his right ear, but his left ear, that was not done by people. That, for whatever reason, he's actually got a split ear right down the middle. I've seen him before, actually. Well, Gigi was going through his training process here before he started presenting the live safaris. And there you have it. How's that for a start to the sunset safari? A sunbathing Hosanna, all puns welcome, and a rhinoceros. I haven't even introduced myself. My name is Jamie, and this afternoon Archie is on camera with me, and we are going to do the easiest bumble this afternoon. We're going to go all the way down into the marsh, and we have 2 goals. One is the Topi birth, because I refused to give up on that. We had 3 goals, actually, but we've already accomplished 1. And 2 is baby warthogs on screen. The third was the rhino, which was, I admit, I was really, going for broke there. But apparently that's just how we start our safaris these days. Unfortunately, he is very, very far away. This is the best possible view that we can get of him. So we'll just have to keep zooming in on him. The sunscreen man. Very sensible. Perhaps you could offer some Hosanna some advice on this hot Juma day while he lazes by the pool. The sunscreen man, back to our black rhino. The answer to whether or not they eat plants or trees. Okay, so it's one of the major differences between the white rhino and the black rhino, or the square-lipped and the hook-lipped rhinoceros. White rhinoceros will feed on grass, black rhinoceros will feed on small perennial plants and trees, and twigs and branches. They love acacia trees. They absolutely adore, what's that tree called? Apple leaves. Apple leaf trees. Oh, I'm so rusty. I'm going to struggle back on Juma. So often when you see black rhino eating with their heads down, it looks like they're eating grass, when in fact they're going for tiny baby trees and small perennial plants. And it becomes very clear if you ever have the opportunity to sift through their dung, because you can see the difference in consistency between a white rhinoceros and a black rhinoceros. I made the critical error. I don't know if I would call it critical. It might be a bit melodramatic. One of my favorite smells in the entire world is the smell of black rhino dung in South Africa. It is a gorgeous smell. Absolutely stunning smell. That might sound odd to those of you who are not accustomed to smelling, well, poo, but it really does. It smells like an African version of potpourri. I made the mistake of assuming that black rhino dung was the same in the Mara, and the first pile that I found I grabbed and took a deep breath. It doesn't at all smell like the dung of a black rhino in South Africa. It stinks. I don't know what it is that they eat here. Something different, perhaps the croton thickets they feed off, or maybe they eat more poison apple, or perhaps it's even sausage tree fruit, which Brent once saw one eating live. All I can tell you is that it smells horrendous. You'll notice that he hasn't moved in all the time that we've been here. He's kind of looking around. He's trying to gauge, because obviously with this sort of rare sighting in the Mara, he has gained a little bit of attention. So he's looking around. He's seen quite a few vehicles, or at least he's heard quite a few vehicles, but because he is so short-sighted, he can't quite figure out which way to go. There is, however, a rhino monitor here to make sure that everybody behaves and that nobody blocks his route. James, no, the rhino are not researched in the same way here for a couple of reasons. However, they are almost as closely monitored as the hyenas are. So each and every single individual rhino is tracked as often as possible, kept track of, monitored, recorded as being seen, as being missing, where it was last seen, where it might have gone. And if there's ever a situation where, for example, a rhino goes into a place where it shouldn't be, people on the ground, the teams on the ground who are responsible 24/7 for protecting them will move in and actually move them back to where they need to be and where they're safe. So no, they're not, well, at least as far as I know, they're not researched. I might be wrong about that. I don't think that they are researched here. There you go. There's an opening if you want to put forward a research proposal. It's also a slightly artificial situation. Their numbers are only really just recovering. Although it would be interesting, it was one of the things that we found really fascinating years ago. I was part of the reintroduction of black rhino, into an area for the first time in 50 years. They'd been extinct in that area for 50 years, and they were brought back thanks to the efforts of the EWT. And it's basically a population expansion program. And 19 black rhino came from the Eastern Cape all the way to this reserve that I was working on. Its location shall remain a secret. And it was fascinating to watch them adapt, where they moved. It was interesting because they chose to move 10 bulls and 10 cows, which I wouldn't have expected. I mean, a big bull like this, and he is a big, dominant, territorial bull, this gentleman. He's big for a black rhino. You know, they have actually quite large territories, and it was interesting watching the larger bulls find their way around. Gary. One of them was called Gary. One of them was called Fakita, and he was an absolute nightmare. He was the heaviest black rhino I have ever encountered in my entire life. He was 1,400 kilograms. And as we were trying to open the crate, it stuck, and he broke someone's finger by jamming it in the door, because he got his horn underneath it, and he wrenched the door of the crate open. He then, as he came barreling out, we still had to sedate him once again to put a tracker on him, because they were all very carefully monitored. He came barging out, nearly took out a vehicle on his way out of the crate. I mean, you can't blame him. He had been spiked with something very sharp in the bottom, and the next thing he knew, 22 hours later, he was in an entirely different place with a headache. So you can't blame him for being grumpy. He had no idea what our motivations were. So he promptly took off that night and ran about 100 kilometers south. And then, very fortunately, by some amazing fluke, turned around and ran all the way back. And then his first act was, on the day that he was being monitored for his very first time and tracked, was to turn around and charge and smash into the rhino monitor's door. It never opened ever again, that particular side of the car. We used to specifically request his location so that we could walk in the opposite direction to him. He loved to chase people up trees. Of course, I'm sure you're all very curious to hear what our beloved camp cat, and I should not call him that, is been up to. Let's go join James as he follows him on his afternoon mission.
We got him out, everybody. We didn't chase him. Well, we did sort of chase him. I clapped my hands and I said, "Go on, out you go." And he got a little bit of a fright, and then he kind of moved out the gate. So that's good. We managed to learn how to close the gate. Gate's closed, he won't be back in there. But he's hungry, so he's hunting. And he's been moving around pretty much since this morning, you know. Ooh, what are we going to get there? Sky, the last time you got him, what's he got? Nothing. Sky, the last time we saw him with a big meal was, I think, the impala he stole from Tundi. He's trying to get the squirrels to shut up by flicking his tail like that. They are having none of it. Shall I just go back a touch? No. He's spotted something in there. I suspect it's a squirrel. Since I'm going to go forward slightly. Yeah. Sorry about that. There's a beastly bump in the road here. Something small has got itself into a hole under the tree. Oh. A mongoose, perhaps? Could be another squirrel. We've watched him devour a squirrel. It takes him roughly 58 seconds. Has he got it, Senzel? Do you think he's managed to kill? No, he hasn't. Come on, boy. Even a squirrel will at least go some way to helping you. I'm going to sneak slightly forward now. No, man. How are you going? There he comes. Peanut butter patty. Most guests finding a leopard outside their windows, if they're at a reputable lodge, would have had a safety briefing that says this area is full of wild animals that could come into the lodge. Do not approach them. Do not attempt to feed them. Do not try and communicate with them through some kind of newfangled animal communication device. Stay behind closed doors and call a ranger or the reception. And so that's most likely what they would do. It's funny, people try and feed monkeys. They seem to think that that's okay. But I've got to tell you, you wake up, open your curtains and see one of these things sitting on the deck outside. There's something instinctual in the response. And that response is not a response that is one that says, I want to go and give that thing a cuddle. It's normally a response of fear, which is, of course, what it should be. All right, we'll move back a little. Oh, he's been spotted from miles away by a kudu. Can you see the kudu there? Yeah. Brilliant. And there were some wild dogs around here sometime during the course of the day. I'm just getting an update on the radio. Hello. Poor little fellow, he wants to eat something now. There, a scrub hare's just made an escape. And the kudu's going, "Rrr, rrr." All right, let's go back to the Mara. We'll keep following him, see if we can find some dogs. No, I think we'll probably just follow him, actually, until he catches something nice to eat. Back to Jamie and her endangered black rhino.
Well, we've stuck around with the black rhino because these opportunities are so fleeting. You'll be happy to know that Mr. Leo Smith has just sent me screenshots of Hosanna chilling out on our pool deck. It's nice to see him, less nice to see him quite so close to where he probably shouldn't be. Now, a rhino in there, that would be interesting. We had a hippo I was actually just telling Archie, back during the drought, we had a hippo walk into and getting stuck in the property of Inga's itself, trying to climb into our pool. We eventually managed to chase it out. Of course, when we look at a rhinoceros, we see how thick the hide truly is. And we have a question about whether or not ticks will be able to bite rhino, or whether or not they will be able to stick to rhino. And the answer to that, Ravinda, is yes, absolutely they can. Sorry, I was just saying hello to people. Yes, they can. They get these massive, massive elephant ticks, we think of them as. They are enormous. And when I've done several rhino darts where you can actually go up and inspect the rhinos quite closely. They gather around the rump area, around between its legs. Now, usually when a rhino is darted for whatever reasons, usually we've darted rhino for suspected bullet wounds and so on, the vet does it a kindness, because of course it's going to wake up with a bit of a hangover, it's been severely interfered with, so the vet just does a little bit of extra to make that rhino's day, and they spray the ticks with a special type of chemical that makes them drop off. It is the most satisfying thing I've ever seen, because those ticks get to about the size, some of them about the size of a small grape, when they're engorged on the rhino's blood. You wouldn't think that they'd be able to get through the skin, but they are massive species of bont ticks, and they are able to do so with large biting mouth parts that they're able to insinuate into the rhino's skin. And obviously around the bottom is where its skin is at its most vulnerable. It's horrible to see the size of those ticks. It is hugely satisfying to see them removed. Obviously, they're a natural part of the ecosystem. Ticks, apparently, everybody keeps telling me, serve their purpose. I'm not the biggest fan of ticks. I know we love all things equally out here, but some things are more equal than others, and I'm not ticks' biggest fans. I've found them on my eyelids. I've found them between my toes. I resent their personal invasion, even if I do know that's exactly what they are designed to do. I'm just going to wave hello to the rhino monitors. Jeffrey, I'm sorry, I completely missed your question. Let me just duck down so I can have this conversation without interrupting what we're talking about. I heard something predators Jeffrey, interestingly enough, so Jeffrey's question is, do the researchers or monitors allow lions to prey on the black rhino? And you know, it is something that happens. It's rare for lions to kill black rhino, but it does happen, particularly where baby black rhino are concerned. And the answer to that is no. In that particular case, the rhino monitors here in the Masai Mara, in the Mara Triangle, will step in and intervene and chase the lions away. That is how that situation will be handled. Obviously, from our side, we are pure observers. We watch as these things play out. But it is their management policy to step in and to chase lions away if it looks like the rhino is at risk. Most of the time, the rhino are more than capable of defending themselves and will do so quite happily, chase the lions away. And it's often young lions that are really practicing their hunting skills and just jumping on something that's big and heavy and quite cumbersome compared to the fleeting antelope, and testing their boundaries, and 99.9% of the time they are not going to be successful. But where there is a calf concerned, and you're dealing with a large pride of lions distracting the mother, or perhaps a large clan of hyenas, then yes, there will be intervention. And that based on the fact that there are a very limited number of these rhino left in this ecosystem. What shall we do? Shall we carry on, or shall we stay and watch this rhino bull? Shame, he seems to be a little bit, not distressed, just confused about where he should go. Hannah, I confess I had not heard of this proposal at all. Hannah wants to know if I have any thoughts about the proposal to introduce rhino to Central Australia. Which rhino? Which species of rhino? I mean, there are species of really critically endangered species of rhino that are not that far from Australia, or at least a little bit closer than the rhino here. Oh, that's a tricky one. It's going to cost I mean, what I always think of it as it comes down to is conservation ultimately is a balancing act. It's an equation. And unfortunately, whether we want it to be like this or not, it is a financial one. Now, moving a whole bunch of rhinos to Central Australia, to me, sounds like it's going to be phenomenally costly, A, and B, could carry all sorts of unforeseen risks for those rhino. Now, and this is I don't know the answer to this because I actually didn't know about this proposal, could that money be better spent on conservation of rhino? Whether we like it or not, conservation is an equation. It's a balancing act. And a lot of the time we've got to remember that conservation means the species. As much as we love the individual, the conservation of the species should always come first and shouldn't be compromised, hi guys, for the needs of an individual. I don't know, I hadn't heard of that proposal up until now. I'd be grateful if you could tweet me a link to how this is going to work. I have chosen the busiest possible road this afternoon, my mistake. But doesn't he look like he belongs here? Doesn't he look like he'd be happier here? I guess the argument is that if he's not safe here, I don't know. I'd be very interested to hear what James might think of that proposal. However, I think he's quite occupied.
I actually, you know what, I think that we shouldn't take wild rhinos out of wild areas. So if you can find genetically intact sort of zoo animals that are bred, I don't think it'd be a bad idea to take them and put them in Australia. I think that so far, oh, there's a scrub here in front of us running away. So far we have not done a great job here in Africa of looking after our rhino, and I suppose that given the lack of people in Australia, perhaps there'd be a better chance for them to survive. And you know, I don't see what harm it could do. It may well, I mean, imagine that they'd moved a couple of those northern white rhino off to Australia and just sort of let them breed there. At least then we wouldn't face the situation where we have one left in the whole world, certainly one left in the wild. So yeah, I mean, it makes me really sad to say that, but I think maybe it isn't a bad idea. Same as tigers, you know, throughout their range tigers are threatened, and the countries in which they live, with due respect, do a pretty poor job of looking after them. Often because there are too many other priorities. And so, well, that was certainly the logic of bringing tigers to South Africa, but I don't think that would necessarily solve the problem. I think having them in a sparsely populated first world country is possibly not a bad idea. I mean, that sounds a dreadful thing to say, but at least it's some security. They should never be, I don't believe they should ever be taken from the wild, but, you know, there are zoo animals that are kept with, you know, intact and the correct genetics of each subspecies of tiger and rhino. He spotted something here. And perhaps those animals should be bred in captivity in places where it's a little bit easier to look after them. He spotted something in here. I suspect it's yet another scrub hare. Maybe it's not, maybe it's a little duiker. Come on, Rosanna. Everyone's rooting for you now, boy. No one likes to see you hungry. We all hate it. We worry about you constantly. Now, if you are a new viewer, we've known this little cat since his birthday, since the very day he was born, to the great Queen of Juma. Kurula was her name. And she had 2 babies that time. One a little girl and one a little boy. This is the little boy, not so little anymore. And unfortunately, Shongile, the female, disappeared about a year ago now. Just over a year. Cat, apparently he will start getting a dewlap probably at about 3.5 years old. They're apparently a really good way of aging leopards. I've seen old leopards with no dewlaps before, but it is a relatively good way of aging them. And if you go to the Panthera website, if you go to panthera.org, scratch around there, you will find a little really nice short assessment of the dewlap and its efficacy in aging a cat. He doesn't have one yet, but it will develop, I suspect, because his father's got one, of course. The dewlap is a flap of skin that hangs below the neckline. Nobody really knows what they're for, and it would seem that it is quite possibly not to protect the neck from biting during fighting, but most likely, or perhaps quite possibly, it is used a little bit like a lion's mane, which is much more useful for attracting mates than it is for protecting the neck, apparently. Although there must be some protective function around the neck. Most injuries to these cats, of course, when they're fighting, come to the backside, because that's what things like hyenas would go for, wild dogs would go for. Oh, he's a magic little kitty, this, isn't he? And although we're still pretty early in the afternoon, the light is quite soft because the wind's been blowing, so there's a lot of dust and smoke in the air. Come on, old boy. There must be some diker or scrub hairs, and you know what? I say he's not developing a dewlap. He is developing a dewlap. Look at it. You can see it there. It's just started. Huh. That's quite fun, isn't it? Getting a bit jowly at his young age. Our little boy, all grown up, eh? Oh. Blue monkey pig? What a lovely name you have, blue monkey pig. You want to know when he's mature enough to mate? In theory, he would... Oh, apparently this is our Beard's sister. Our Beard left us today, by the way. He's now in the Kruger. We wish him well. Very nice having him. Tremendously, tremendously nice man. Right, blue monkey pig. You want to know if or when he will be ready to mate. Probably in about a year, I would imagine. That is when he should be able to mate. Did you see him, Senzel? I've lost him. Oh dear. Senzel, can you see the cat? At the 1 o'clock. There you've got him. Senzel's eyes are utterly magnificent. Where mine truly... I don't pick out quite the detail as his do. I can see him. Let's go around here. All right, Pyjamas Patterson doesn't appear to have left her black rhino. She doesn't appear to be with the North Clan of Hyena or the Topi. And so let's go and find out how her black rhino is doing.
I was going to, but then we found a slightly better position to view him, and I thought, well, why not? Just a little bit longer with an animal that I absolutely love. Shame, you can see he's quite unsettled. I'm going to leave him shortly There's just as we reach sort of park closing times, there's more and more vehicles coming or returning home this way. So I'm going to leave him shortly, but it's nice to just spend a little bit of time with him. This is the sort of standard black rhino reaction. We get some that are very relaxed with people around, and others that aren't, and we are far away from him. But I think that's probably the problems as well. The wind is blowing our scent away from him, so he can't smell exactly what's going on, and it's bothering him. Speaking of ticks, you'll notice the oxpecker fluttering around by his nostril. So there we go. That answers the question about whether or not there are ticks on rhinoceros. You will always find oxpeckers around them. They're very, very tolerant of oxpeckers, whereas most elephants are not really. But rhino are quite happy to have oxpeckers on them, and it's one of the ways that we will, if we are walking through the bush, one of the ways that we will be very aware of the sounds around us to make sure we don't put ourselves in danger. Because oxpeckers could mean a hippo, it could mean buffalo, could mean giraffe, it could also mean a rhino. So there's actually two of them sitting, one on his shoulder and one on his rear, one on his hips. Rick, no, not accurately. It's quite easy to age a rhino up until around about 3 or so years old. After that, it becomes slightly more difficult. At about 8 or 9, the males will reach their full sexual maturity and they'll start competing for territory. So he could be anywhere from around about 8 years old upwards. He is a big dominant bull, I can tell you that much. The rhinos can live up to around about 40 or so years old. So I don't think he's that old, but really that's pure guesswork. I can't tell exactly how old he is, especially at this distance. Obviously, the most accurate way, as with most herbivores, would be to check how worn down his teeth are. But looking at him, it's really quite difficult to say. And the same applies to the females. At around about 4 or 5, they'll start having their first estrus cycles. Might take them a bit longer to fall pregnant. But after that, they do continue to, their horns continue to grow throughout their lives, but they'll break off, they'll wear down. So you can't use horn size, you can't really use body size either to work out exactly how old a rhino is once it's past sexual maturity, once it has sort of reached that stage. And you get different individuals, just as you do with any animal. Some are bigger, some are smaller. In the same way that Hosanna was already bigger than Vutomi when he was about 12 or so months old, a year old, where Vutomi was actually older than him. So it really just depends upon the individual. Nice opportunity to ask as many questions as you want about him, or rhino in general. And then I think we'll probably wander off. Oh, Bradley, that's a tricky one. Okay, I'll give you a little confession. Because I recognize this rhino's ear, I know what sex he is. It's quite difficult to work out the sex of a rhino at a distance, unless you've got some of those identifying features. I've already seen a closer view of him, and therefore know exactly which sex he is. You can guess at it by size, because male rhino are quite a bit bigger than female rhino. I mean, a female rhino won't get much bigger, black rhino that is, won't get much bigger than 800 kilograms, where a male could, as I said, reach up to 1,400. So size, but size is difficult to gauge at a distance. You might not necessarily know what 800 kilograms looks like versus 1,400 kilograms. The best way to judge the sex of a rhino is to A, watch its behavior, but B, the most accurate, is to look at the flaps of skin between the back legs. If it forms a V, that is a male. If it is a U-type shape, then it is a female. I'd have to draw it for you. That's not a very good description, and unfortunately I've left my picture. Or have I? Actually, come to think of it, let me just check. I see that Brent has already made plans for how to keep Hosanna out of our room. Okay, this is an elephant, but it sort of matches what I mean. So if you have a look here, the female is on the left and the male is on the right. So obviously different, slightly different anatomy for rhino. This is not quite as clear. Whoopsie. You can have a look at my passport picture if you really wanted to. It's not very nice though. No one's passport picture is very nice. Let's get out of here. Let's duck, because I think a lot of people are wanting to chat to us and I want to get down to the marsh. The Samaki Swamp, actually. Hi! They're totally videoing us. Hi guys! Hi. Chat Noir. Do the rhino's horns keep growing? Yes. The rhino horn is basically, not entirely, but it's keratin, and it's kind of comparable to a human being's fingernails. So just in the same way that our fingernails continue to grow, so do rhino's horns. It's one of the arguments behind potentially legalizing the sale of rhino horn, with the attempt or the idea to flood the market, drop the price of rhino horn, and therefore drop the demand and hopefully reduce poaching. Because what you can do, you still have to leave about a hand span worth of horn on that rhino. So those dehorned rhinos are still at risk, and a lot of places do dehorn their rhinos. They take the horn off completely, but they have to leave that hand span plus the root of the horn. That's still worth money on the black market. So even dehorned rhino are at risk. I think I don't think it disadvantages the rhino too much. Obviously rhino have a horn for a reason, but I have seen dehorned rhino quite happily survive with rhino that still have their horns without looking disadvantaged in any major way, still having breeding opportunities, still being able to fight off predators. But the truth is, it doesn't necessarily mean they're safe, unfortunately. I'm going to carry on looking for Topi and Warthog. Mr. Hosanna is also carrying on despite the heat of the day. Let's go see what he's up to now.
It's not too hot this afternoon, it's actually quite pleasant, and Hosanna is now reading emails. He's given up on trying to catch something to eat. He's now reading emails off the squarry bush. See? He's just having a little taste there. Now he will probably do his little phlegm and grimace. There we are. Thinking to himself, who was this? I can't smell. Maybe it was Tundi. Yes, could have been Tundi. Maybe it was Dad. Maybe it was Shidulu. We're right on the boundary between Tundi and Shidulu's territory. So maybe he's smelling Shidulu. He's thinking, there's a lady around. It certainly distracted him from any hunting activities. Margarita, yesterday he came into camp and lifted his leg on Jerry's vehicle. Yes. No, he didn't. Jerry was just saying she'd be very honoured if he had done that, but no, he hasn't. He won't scent mark a vehicle. He will only scent mark on bushes and things that are going to retain his scent. And look, I've seen him doing what many people interpret as scent marking. I think most of the time it's just him having a pee. He's too young to scent mark at the moment. We're going to move behind him. It's not going to get us the best pictures, but it is going to allow him to move ahead unfettered and not worry too much about, well, he's not going to worry about us, but we're not going to drive around and then startle something that he might catch. So we'll just drive behind him at a discreetish distance. Paula, I don't know, I've been asked this very often, can they sense fear? I don't know if they interpret it. Let's take a dog. We know a dog can tell if a human being is afraid or not afraid. I don't believe that they can smell that. Or no, sorry, I'm saying that wrong. The question is, how do they sense it? Is there a smell that we give off when we're afraid? I suspect there could possibly be. I don't know enough about it. But, you know, I mean, when we're afraid, we start making all sorts of different hormones that could easily result in us smelling slightly different. But also, if we look at him over there, we also change our body language. And dogs pick that up very quickly. If we do not act in a dominant fashion around a dominant dog, or a dog trying to act in a dominant way, they can often become quite nasty. And with cats, you definitely have to behave in a dominant fashion if you find them on foot and they behave in a way that certainly indicates that they may not be afraid of you. You definitely need to behave in an aggressive fashion. And whether or not they can smell if you're fear or sense if you're afraid, I don't know. They can certainly tell, though, if you're not acting in a dominant way. So if you don't stand tall and shout at, for example, a charging lion, you can get yourself into big trouble. I'm just waving at another game drive. A picture of him here on this termite mound. Searching for scrub hares he is, or possibly just posing. I'm sure Jamie's explained to you why it's just the two of us this afternoon. There we are. We just level out the camera and then we'll have a look at Hosanna. What can you see, boy? Judy, he's about a quarter of a mile from camp, from our camp. He's about half a mile from the original spot we had him, next to the pool where he was reclining. So he's not too far away. Much as I hate to say this, I really do feel that he needs to start roaming a little more widely. It's very nice to have him close to camp, but it does mean that he's not expanding his horizons much. And Kirsten doesn't want him to kill Bobo the bushbuck. I didn't know we had a bushbuck called Bobo over there, but apparently we do. Oh, Gogo the bushbuck. Gogo the bushbuck, yes. Gogo the bushbuck is a bushbuck that is leucistic, and so looks like she's got grey hair. I don't think she's grey-haired at all. I think she's just slightly leucistic. And Gogo means granny out here. And so some of the ladies have named the bushbuck Gogo the bushbuck. Oh, it could have been Eggsy that named her, apparently. Oh, come on, I keep hitting stumps. It's so irritating. Keep going. We're just going to follow, like I say, at a relatively discreet distance so that he has enough space and we don't startle anything that he might trying to catch. Carrie, I am afraid I'm unable to answer the question as to whether catnip would have an effect on Hosanna or not. It might, but I really couldn't tell you, I'm afraid. There he is, feigning regality. He's perfectly coloured for this grass, isn't he? But for his little pink nose. It's a little bit like having a bicycle reflector on the front of your face. Not really. I don't think it would make a huge difference to any animal that saw it. Now, I don't know if any of you have seen this video doing the rounds on social media, but there's a video doing the rounds where a leopard jumps up onto a car, much like this one, and starts sniffing at a guest's foot. And that is precisely the kind of thing that we never ever want to happen over here. And so there must always be this boundary, no matter how much we want to close the boundary and make it disappear between us and a cat like this that we're so fond of. We must make sure that that boundary is maintained all the time. Alrighty, Jamie Patterson has forsaken one pachyderm, and she's now on to another one. Guess which one it is. What could it be?
Forsaken one pachyderm for another, indeed. Another animal that has a tendency to do what James was talking about, which is every now and again get that little bit too close to people for comfort. These little guys are okay. They do it out of curiosity, and it's something that largely they will grow out of. But I'm sure many of you will have seen the video going round of the elephant walking into a campsite and basically looming over the campgoers. That is phenomenally dangerous, a situation like that, because it doesn't take, perhaps you might sneeze or set the elephant off, but it doesn't necessarily have to be you. Something could scare the elephant behind it. It could be a snake, for example, in the grass, or a mouse. And all of a sudden you find yourself with a situation that's gone from relaxed to phenomenally dangerous. Occasionally, bull elephants will come and put their trunks in the car or test their tusks up against the bull bar. Immediately one always thinks of Darryl, the elephant in the sands, who likes to do that. But as James said, that's a scenario that we never ever want to see play out. Lots of elephants on the Samaki swamp. It's one of the reasons why I love coming here. I haven't been here often. It's the complete opposite direction to North Clan, but I thought I had better come along this way before I depart. Look at that. We have a tuskless elephant. That, of course, does not mean that she is any less dangerous. Not that she's lost them, it's that she's been born without them. And if we have a look at this elephant here, and it seems as though one-horned, one-tusked animals is becoming something of a theme over the last few days. I suspect that she was probably born without that tusk as well. Ha! Nicholas, there you go. I was a couple of steps ahead of you there, or perhaps Kirsty was a couple of steps ahead of me. Yes, elephants can be born with one tusk. Most of the time it's not necessarily that they're born with just one tusk. It's that something's damaged that the structure of the tusk before it's even had a chance to emerge. Just in some way that some children might be born with a tooth that has a crack or doesn't grow properly. It's that same sort of thing. Elephant tusks are essentially just that. They're a modified tooth, which means they can get abscesses, they can crack. In some cases they don't grow at all, just like human beings who don't grow wisdom teeth. It really is dependent upon the individual. In this case, looking at her, she doesn't look as though she's broken her tusk off. It looks as though it never grew in the first place. There's no real sign of any tusk you can see how where the tusk inserts next to the trunk, there's a little bit of a swelling. Essentially as the tusk goes in underneath the skin and then obviously into the jawbone. That other side doesn't have it at all. There's no sign of that skin being pushed out there, so I don't think it's broken off under the skin. I don't think that she has one. Such a nice peaceful herd. There's quite a few vehicles here at the moment. As I said, it's almost home time. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to sit it out peacefully. I haven't had a nice extended elephant sighting in a while. And there's a few tiny babies in this particular herd. So I think we'll stick it out and wait for the rest of them to depart. There's a very tiny baby, actually, Archie. I don't know if you can see it. It is behind the female without the tusks, in that group behind her. The one a bit to the right there. The one without any tusks at all, sorry. Should be more specific. There, in that group behind there, there is a tiny, tiny little one. Wait, hey, this elephant's going to come and photobomb us. You can just see it, hidden behind the legs of another one-tusked elephant. I suspect this is the genetic lot of this particular herd's life. Some elephants just are like that. Some elephants are born without tusks, and it is genetic, so therefore it is more likely to be more common in a herd of elephants that are related to each other, which in this case these guys would be. It's a big herd though. I think it's more than one herd here. Yeah, once everyone's departed, which I have no doubt they will do shortly, then we'll sit and listen to the sound of them feeding. Lisa, I've seen both. I mean, the common story is that elephants take themselves off to give birth on their own, and they'll go. There's even stories here of a maternity forests where the elephant female will take herself off alone. But she doesn't actually, and typically she doesn't go that far from her herd members at all. So in situations where we've come very close to seeing an elephant being born, the herd has always been somewhere in the vicinity. The only time that I can think of where the herd hasn't been around was in that situation where that young elephant calf did not survive. Something went very wrong, the placenta did not detach, and I think in that scenario the female's herd, I don't know, they didn't wait for her. They moved off and allowed her privacy. Odd. It's counter to the behavior I would have expected from elephants. There's some youngsters playing in the back as well. We'll be able to get a better view in a bit, I hope. Oh, still hasn't fully mastered that whole trunk thing. Oh, look at Mom's tail on it. Angie, again, it's something that is so incredibly rare to see. I mean, of course, a female elephant will start to, obviously her water will break, which will be a very big sign that she's about to go into labor. But before that, she gets quite restless, and the whole herd gets quite restless. They start making a lot of noise. They're more nervous. They're jumpy almost with their behavior. And it's not just the female that's about to give birth. The whole herd responds that way. And I think one of the most interesting examples of animal behavior, and she wasn't giving birth, but there was something going on with you boys having fun. Hopefully we'll be able to get a good view of them shortly. She wasn't giving birth, but something was going on with Fang. And watching her herd move around her and then her move off on her own, get up, lie down, that's very similar to the behavior that you'll see exhibited by an elephant that's about to give birth. Obviously a loss of appetite as well. Another one-tusked elephant. Old girl. Alt A, while we look at this beautifully aged female, and she's really lovely. You can just see a wealth of experience in her. You want to know if bulls and cows will fight. Occasionally, particularly where young males are concerned, females will often chase young males away. They occasionally get tired of them in their space and they'll push them out. But where big males are concerned, they really do. Where a big mature bull is concerned, he will actually be able to push. These two really, Archie, they really want to be in the show. Those two fighting elephants, they really, really do. They've come all this way to come into view for us, and I think that is really terribly accommodating of them. Where it comes to big males, the females will try and band together, but actually the presence of big males, particularly in must, can be very disturbing for a herd of females. Even more so, oh, there's so many elephants here. Even more so when there is a female coming into estrus, because the males are not good at taking no for an answer, and they'll chase her round and round and round and round. And she makes a very big deal of it as well. She also squeals and runs about. but it's very seldom that a cow will actually challenge a big male elephant. Youngsters, absolutely, they'll get disciplined all the time, right up until they reach about 20 years of age, and at that point they will be much bigger than the females. Already with this herd, you can see some of the bulls hanging out on the outskirts. Okay, let's move forward a little bit as the elephants move along. They're hopefully not going to vanish before we have them all to ourselves. Oh, it's Brent's car. I hate Brent's car. Can never find the right gear. I'm not used to it. The reverse is the wrong way. There's a little one there. It's not down and right, it's up and left. Takes some getting used to after a while. I'm afraid we can't avoid having a vehicle in the background, but I can move my head so that you can watch the little one. It was rolling on the termite mound as I was driving up. Nicholas, very well observed. I'm very impressed. Nicholas wants to know why some elephants' tails are very hairy, while some don't have much in the way of hair at all. Again, it's a situation where you've got individuals. Some individuals have thick hair, individual humans I mean. Some have thinner hair, some have long hair, some have short hair. But in the case of elephants, it's an individual thing unless there has been some sort of injury to the tail tip. So all elephants will have some hair on the end of their tails, and believe it or not, elephants are actually surprisingly hairy creatures. You don't necessarily think of it, but if you were to go up and touch them, you'll find that they are covered with sparse, very, very wiry, it's basically like soft wire hair, and it covers their entire bodies. Might not seem that way when we look at them like this. You'll see it most clearly underneath their chins, where they have whiskers. So if we were to have a close look at their mouths as they feed, you'll get a chance to see that they've got... They are bearded ladies. There you go, see? Around their tusks and around their jaws you'll see the bristly hair, and that actually covers, it's very, very sparse, but it actually covers most of their bodies. Feeling an elephant's skin is like rubbing your hand on, I couldn't even compare it to leather. It's almost like rubbing your hand on the ground, on a rock. On a wrinkly rock. It's just warm, obviously, and slightly more elastic. But the actual feel of it, if you just run your hand along it, well, I guess it is what it looks like. I think Kirst has very kindly highlighted my sheer lack of eloquence there. Telling me I should be a writer. It's like rubbing your hand on a rock. A really wrinkly rock. Okay, not my best sentence. I concede. I concede. Oh, and then of course, for Nicholas, the hair of the tails on the baby elephants haven't come through properly. So that hair is still growing. Kirsty's chirping me, but I don't know what she's saying, so I'm just going to pretend, because I couldn't hear her. Those little pink feet. Oh, marvelous. Surrounded by elephants. We're going to spend a bit more time with our pachyderm friends, and James is still with our beloved little chief.
There he is. He's sitting behind a little termite mound. His ears are horizontal to the ground as he thinks about hunting. He's been stalking across this beautiful little patch of grass that we have here, searching for something to eat. We're about to have quite an amusing incident, I think. There seems to be a person driving down the road with a fridge attached to the back of their car. And they're about to have a sighting of Hosanna. And Hosanna's about to see a fridge attached to the back of the car for the first time in his life. Yeah, well, let us see what happens. It's not a situation that is likely to occur every day or indeed ever again. Why someone is driving out of the reserve with a fridge attached to their car is anyone's guess. I think we might have to move though. Let's just give him a second. Okay, let's move. I'm assuming it's some kind of repairman as opposed to a fridge pirate. Ah, kosher pickles. How lovely to hear from you. Kosher pickles, really? Now you say you love the tips of their tails. They seem to have a mind of their own. I agree with you. We're just going to go across the road here. There's the man with the fridge in his car. And now the man with the fridge in his car has just seen a leopard. Wonderful. Hosanna is heading towards his pan. Yes, Larimore, good point. There's a human being hoisting their food. It better not be one of our fridges. The mystery fridge pirate of the Sabi Sands has just been cuffed. He's now deeply confused as to what to do. This cat is heading straight back towards the Gallagher pan now. He's decided this is his latest hunting ground. He's going to very shortly get into an area that's difficult for us to follow him into. He's going towards camp. I'm going to try and avoid the fridge pirate. So he's moved away from Inga's house, which is where we started, and he's now heading towards the final control. And apparently, what was that? They're joking that he ordered what? Oh, Uber Eats, yes. I don't think, maybe that's a leopard-sized Uber Eats coming towards us. Oh, and we also have the return of, there we go. Yeah. Got him. There's also the return of our staff vehicle. David is returning from the town trip there. Oh, the fridge pirate's enjoying having a good look at the leopard. Can't believe his luck. Picked up a fridge and he's now got a leopard sighting to boot. I wish you could hear the Game Drive radio, everybody. It is quite special what's going on there. There's somebody, I think, who's had a couple too many bottles of wine for lunch, announcing himself coming on Game Drive. You still here? Just get into a position to have a decent look at him. The fridge pirate has disappeared. Oh no, the fridge pirate is still there. You see the leopard there? You got him. Is he moving? Oh, there he is. Straight through there. And you see him just the other side of the termite mound. That silver car is our staff deciding that they don't see enough leopards in the field. He's just gone behind there. He's going to pop out the other side, I think. Very silent again. I wonder if they realise that they are making a slight mess of the sighting. Let's keep going. There he is. Oh, we're going to get a lovely picture of him now. Let's quickly go round. Ow, 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 ow. No, is he going to stop? There we go. All right, you can have a look at him there, and then we're going to go back to Jamil Patterson sitting with a cute baby Ellie. I'm told it's cute. I've never seen a baby Ellie that isn't cute. And woe betide the person who calls a baby Ellie uncute.
So many cute baby elephants. This herd is full of them. Unfortunately, now they've all changed direction and gone back in the way, or back towards where we were. And unfortunately, I appear to be, or maybe I'm not. Is anyone behind me, Archie? I can't see. Can't see anyone behind me. I'm thinking of maybe turning around. I've got space. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Although this is also very beautiful under the sky. It's not quite ready for backlight yet. I think we'll turn around first. We'll come back. I'm going to spend a lot of time with these elephants. I'm in absolutely no rush. Okay, there are a few vehicles behind me. I picked the wrong route on the wrong day today. Actually, you know what I might do? I'm going to go to that other elephant herd. Not that I don't like this one, but I think it might really make our lives easier if we go spread out a little bit. Just going to sneak past these guys. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. Grievous error. Oh dear. Alright, you can look at those elephants for now. Unfortunately, right into the sun, which isn't very helpful for Archie. Sorry, Archie. Unfortunately, there is absolutely nothing I can do at present. So we'll look at some elephants in some golden grass, because it's very pretty. What are you doing with your trunk there? You got something on your chin you're trying to get to. There we go. This is not a bad view, really. I don't think anyone's going to complain. Beautiful. Oh, you wanting to know about the white glob? I can't think of a better way to describe it. The white glob that collects in the corner of elephants' eyes. Well, if you think about it, they live in some of the dustiest places on the planet, and their eyes are very, very sensitive to that. They've got phenomenally long eyelashes to help to sort of keep their eyes safe while they feed. But that build-up is basically a waxy build-up that helps to protect the eye, and then of course collects in the corners of the eye, just in the same way that when you rub your eyes in the morning you might find a sort of a crusty substance as you wake up. That's essentially what it is. So on dusty days when the wind is howling and the dust is flying everywhere and making them very uncomfortable, then you'll see that they might have a higher percentage of that build-up than they might otherwise. I'm terribly sorry. I'm going to... they've stopped. I was going to try and move around this vehicle so that I could stop being videoed on the sly out of the back. It's surrounded by elephants. Enjoy the elephants. Promise you I'm not that interesting when you're here in real life. What you seeing there? Okay, I see exactly what Archie's after. Look at that green screen dust, everyone. I should be coughing right about now. Not quite close enough to me yet. I'll wait till it gets until the guy zooms in on the green screen, and then I'll do a fake cough for everyone. Oh dear. Intimidation by a very small young elephant. I'm very distracted by the goings on around me. Oh, that's beautiful. Really, really beautiful. Okay. Oh, very pretty. And the elegant way that they walk is surprisingly quick. I always feel as though, shame, I think this one might have a bit of a limp, although it is walking through mud. I always feel as though giraffe look as though they're walking in slow motion. Even when they run, they look as though they are running in slow motion. It seems as though they've got extra joints as they move. There's a whole load of things that are unfolding. In fact, they cover ground relatively quickly. Archie. Carpe diem. Let's go steal. That's the best spot. Up there with all the elephants. We can always look back at the beautiful dust scene. Carpe elephant. No, that's not right. Got that all wrong. Carrie, baby elephants lie down more often than the adults do when they sleep. So baby elephants, just like human babies, need more sleep than the adult elephants do. And that makes sense. They've got a lot of growing to do. It's exactly the same way as babies or puppies or kittens. They need more sleep. I've been trying to get to this elephant bull the entire time. He's magnificent, but he's going to walk straight into the sun now. So yes, they sleep on the lying down more often than they sleep standing up. That is not always the case. Sometimes they doze off while standing. Even a fully grown elephant will sleep lying down. There we go. The bull that I'm talking about is the one that's up ahead of us. So even a fully grown elephant, like this massive male, will go to sleep lying down occasionally. He won't lie down for very long, and usually they will prefer to lie down in a place where they can get up more easily. In other words, if they can lie down on a sandbank or a termite mound, or if they can lie up against a tree, they prefer to do that because it's just a mission, standing up again. But adult elephants sleep very little. In fact, they're one of the animals that sleep the least out of all animals out here. Generally speaking, there was a study done quite recently. Generally speaking, an elephant cow will only go into deep sleep roughly every 3 or so days. So they very, very seldom sleep. I love this area. Emerald green. Oh, excuse me. It's the green screen dust. Poof! It hit me finally. It wasn't a fake cough, it was a real sneeze. We're just really good actors. Those sneezes are... Those sneezes are imitated to perfection. Okay, I'm talking utter nonsense. Perhaps James has something more sensible to tell you.
I don't have anything more sensible to say to you. I'm afraid I can't show you anything because the cat is sitting behind us that we cannot move. Ah, there he is. I can move now. Let me try and move. Well, Margarita, that is a very good question. Oh, jeepers, there's so much bush here. Margarita, scent marking is different from just sort of standard issue urinating in that they do it on a bush that is likely to hold the scent. I don't think there's actually a huge difference in the substance. So, for example, we're in a thicket of guarri bushes now, and if he needed to go to the loo, well, he might just squat where he is, and it may well have that popcorn scent. But if he was scent marking, then he'd lift his tail and spray it onto one of the guarri bushes. I'm just wondering if there isn't some kind of hormonal change. There could be, where, you know, a hormone makes it smell like that popcorn smell when they get a little bit older. He's definitely spotted something in there. Perhaps another scrub hare that is shortly to escape from him. See, he's such a busy cat, and you know, we talk about cats sleeping for sort of days at a time often, but I think these leopards sleep far, far, far less than the lions do. We're heading towards the Galago Pan, which is the pan just near to camp where he spent the last week or so. There is some very thick bush in here. We shall try and get through. As far as I know, for 774 Patrick, he has not taken any warthogs yet. It is possible that we have seen him take a warthog. Maybe he's killed small warthogs. I would suggest that he's probably up. Oh, look at the hornbill here. I can't see the leopard. Oh, no, I can see the leopard now. There's a little hornbill sitting watching up here. I would suggest that before he becomes successful at taking large warthogs, he's going to have to get about a year bigger. But he's still a youngster, you know. 2.5 is pretty young. He must have walked through this thicket at least 100 times in the last 4 weeks. In and out. We might go down to the pan to have a drink. All right, let's move forward a little bit. It's opening up a bit for us here. Ooh. There we go. Look, there's a positive highway in front of us. Made by elephants and buffalo and bushwalk walking up and down here. There we go. Now he's going to pay attention to see if there isn't something at the waterhole having a drink. He might just pop up onto that termite mound. There we are. And the light is just now absolutely perfect, isn't it? I don't want to move and spoil the spell. I just want to let him get up onto the termite mound if he's going to. I suspect he'll probably go up there to see if he can't spot something having a drink at the waterhole. It's not far from here now. You've still got him there, Sense, as he moved. Ah, you've still got him. Well done, yes. That grunting noise you can hear is Senzo desperately trying to hold in his sneezes. It's very impressive, Senzo. You must be careful, of course, that your brain doesn't leak out of your ears. I think you should just sneeze. I'm not sure it's very good for you to hold it in like that.
If I sneeze, I can sneeze more than 7 times.
Oh, dear. Senzo says if he sneezes, he can sneeze more than 7 times. I think the viewers would be fascinated by that, Senzo. So please, the next time you're going to sneeze, just let it go. He's getting a little tired now, you see. I read the other day on the back end of Sydney saying it, and mine having not heard it before, that yawning is used by animals to regulate the temperature of the brain. Which I hadn't realised before. I thought Sydney was talking nonsense, but before I said to him, Sydney, you're talking nonsense, I went to have a look, and so it appears to be true. Perhaps everyone knew that except me, but perhaps I've just told you something you didn't know. These animals apparently yawn when their brains get a little bit hot. If you have a brain as small as mine, then you don't need to yawn very often. It's quite convenient. There he goes, melting through the bushes. Nicon? No, when I was younger, I wanted to be a rock star. I didn't ever think about becoming a leopard whisperer, no. In fact, I didn't really know that there were animal whisperers until I saw the horse whisperer. And that really wasn't about whispering to horses so much as it was about a love story. There's a buffalo down there. Can you see buffalo? Really? Senzo says he can see buffalo at the waterhole. He's absolutely right. So no, Nichin, I didn't ever think about becoming a leopard whisperer. There are some who say they can whisper to leopards. I'm not one of them. There's quite some fairly compelling viewing of a woman who I actually met once called Anna someone. I've forgotten her surname, but she reckons she can talk to animals, and if you watch some of the videos that she does, it's quite interesting stuff. She reckons that she can tell what animals feel. She's certainly a very genuine and authentic human being. But I've certainly never felt that I can talk with animals, much as I'd like to. He is now thinking about how delicious buffalo steak would be for him, but realizing perhaps that in the same way we have no steak knives to cut through steak in our camp, so he has no equipment in his mouth to take out a tough buffalo. And it must remind me, of course, I ask all of you to remind me that we need desperately to be aware of the fact that we have buffalo, because we'll be on walk tomorrow morning. Michelle, you say no, Tristan is the leopard whisperer. So I think you're agreeing that I am in no shape, way or form a leopard whisperer. You're saying that it would be dreadful for me to pretend to be one, and basically asking Nichin how on earth she could confuse Tristan for a leopard whisperer. But I would agree with you, Michelle. Tristan is a leopard whisperer. Either that or he's just very good at tracking them. I'm going to go with the latter myself, but he is very good at tracking them. And he does so enjoy their stories and tell their stories so well. Now, a young male leopard will stalk buffalo from time to time. They do find it quite amusing. I think he's really hungry, though, so I'm not sure that he's going to spend too much time playing with the beefaloes. I'm just going to call them in, on the radio. Stations, there appears to be a small herd of buffalo at Gallagher Pan. They're drinking now. Well spotted, Senzo, yet again. Thank you, Umkar, for rectifying my fragile ego this evening. You said, don't worry, James, You are the Impala Whisperer. What an honour, what a profound honour that is. Thank you, yes. You may as well have told me that I'm the Red Bush Willow Whisperer. Cara, you say I'm not a whisperer but a talker. Thank you, I think, maybe, or not. Not sure. I think let's move on. Shall we, Kirsten? Shall we move on to another subject? Let's go across to the hyena whisperer now in the Masai Mara. She is not whispering at hyenas anymore. She is whispering at elephants.
Well, today I want to be the elephant whisperer. I mean, I'm happy being the hyena whisperer, and I whisper quite a lot to the hyenas because, of course, well, we've been sitting at a den site with very tiny babies up until recently. So, but today, because we're not with a hyena, I think I want to be either an elephant whisperer or a topi whisperer. Can you choose which one you can be? I see some elephants. I'm whispering at them. I am predicting they are all... Kirsty says, unfortunately, that role is designated at birth. Okay, fair enough then. I'll be the hyena whisperer. I'll probably find a hyena somewhere along the road anyway. There's lots of them about. There's plenty of them about, especially around governors. Aww. Okay, well, let's pretend for a second that I am whispering to the elephants, or perhaps just interpreting what they do. We've moved back to the original herd that we were with at the very start of spending time with the elephants. And now that it's getting a little bit cooler, not that it was hot by Djuma standards here in the Mara, but for the Mara it was relatively warm. Now that it's a little bit cooler, I think they're probably going to feel slightly more energetic. And the tiny baby's in there as well, somewhere. And they've just crossed a large lugger system that feeds the Samaki swamp. For this is the Samaki swamp. And they are gathering slowly but surely around a termite mound. The reason... What are you doing, elephant? Are you going to sit down? No, you're going to climb up? No, you can't do that behind the other elephants. It doesn't count if we can't see it. You're playing. Looks like they're playing. The reason, of course, that they are gathered around the termite mound is that where some of the best quality grasses will be. The termites bring up good quality nutrients from below the sort of normal surface layer of the soil. They bring it up to the surface, and that means that the plants that grow on termite mounds are often of high nutrient value. That's why we always ask the question, what came first, the termite mound or the big tree growing on it? It doesn't quite work the same way here in the Mara. Oh, what you doing, little elephant, in there? There's the little one in the middle. I think it's found itself a branch that it can't quite break off. And it has resorted... What is it doing? Again, a little tricky, right into the sun once again. But I'm hoping if we show a little patience, they're going to come this way. I might not, though, because I see that there's some other elephants further in the direction that I was going to go. And I'm still aiming to get a baby warthog on camera at least. And we get all the babies before I leave. Oh, there's a tiny baby. Sorry, Archie, off to the left. There. There's quite a youngster. Right. From pachyderm to feline to pachyderm to pachyderm. Let's go back across to James, who has something with a thick skin that's not a pachyderm, I just realised.
No, it is not a pachyderm, it is a beefalo. And these beefalos are milling about the very small Galago pan. There are quite a few of them, I'd say about 100 odd maybe, between 50 and 100, belching and burping at each other and having a bit of a scrap over who should get some water. First buffalo I've seen here since, I think, the sighting we had with Sydney on the northern boundary about 6 weeks ago, where they were chased by the Nkuhuma Pride. That was a couple of bulls. Then Tristan had a herd fairly recently, as did Herbert on foot with R. Beard. They're all looking in pretty good nick, I must say. For the end of the winter, I think they're looking very good. They've obviously been sitting around somewhere where there's a bit of grass for them to eat. And while they will undoubtedly be looking forward to the coming of the rainy season, they certainly do seem to be in good health. Now, I haven't got you a clearer view of them because I'm still watching Hosana, the male leopard, on the other side of the car. We won't have a look at him with the camera just yet because he doesn't have a great view. So we'll just enjoy the beefies. But I'm not going to move from here because I don't want to lose him. They're nowhere near the lions from this morning. Paula the pan will dry up, but luckily it's attached to a tap, so it'll just be filled up again. It's a pumped pan. There's no way that it would be... well, there's no way there'd be any water in it at all if it wasn't for the fact that it's pumped. It's very shallow. Just a little bit distracted because the leopard has started to move. We don't need to look at him just yet. I think the distraction of the buffalo might be good for something that he might try and catch. Perhaps a duiker lurking in the little gully behind us. The buffalo will be very displeased to see him. If they do see him, they do not like predators. They would definitely chase him. Hosana now moving away behind us to a place I don't think would be able to go actually. Yeah, James Richard, I agree completely. You say it's so good to have buffalo back on Djuma. What a welcome sight. Absolutely. All of the animals out here, of course, are fascinating, but buffalo are one of the more fascinating ones. And also one of the ones we get most blasé about most quickly when we see them a lot. I will tell you that I can no longer see our leopard, and that is because I think he's headed into a gully. Oh no, there he is, we've got him now. He's just moved. Let's keep looking at the buffalo. I'm not going to try and show you the leopard at the moment. Now, we had the Nkuhuma Pride earlier today. We know that they are buffalo specialists. They are nowhere near here. They're a good 1.5 miles away as the crow flies. But the wind is blowing towards them, so perhaps they'll come up towards this area and harass these poor bovids, who I suspect will turn north from whence they came this afternoon and go back into Buffelshoek, which is where they've come from. Oh, Mrs. On Top of the World, with a name like that, wouldn't it be nice to hear that buffalo like to eat sugared sweets, ice creams and frozen yogurts? They don't, though. They are grazers. They are bulk grazers, which means that they are not fussy about which grass species they eat, to a certain extent. And they play a huge role in clearing areas of moribund or dry grass, and they can eat the driest kind of grass as long as they've got enough water to drink. And so their bulk grazing effects on the ecology of a landscape, hugely important. They also play an important role, of course, with their dung. They make lots of dung, and that dung is fertilizing. And likewise, the herd effect of having their hooves cracking open the surface of the soil plays a huge role in replacing grass when the rains eventually do come. I am looking at young Hosana. We won't get him with the camera at the moment. He's staring down towards the camp, towards the new rooms that we have. Kirsten says that the buffalo we're looking at now looks like Conrad, who is our who is our engineer. After he's had too much sugar, he has a sugar allergy, so if he eats pudding in the night, he wakes up looking very like that buffalo. He doesn't salivate quite like that, which is quite a relief, but he certainly does have puffy, closed eyes like that. Conrad, let that be a lesson to you if you're sitting in the final control room. That is what you look like after a bit of Happiness's Malva pudding with custard. But not quite with the gormless chewing motion. He is, of course, chewing the cud, that buffalo, after his water. Mixed the grass in his rumen with a bit of water, now vomiting it up into his mouth, re-chewing it and swallowing it down into the other 3 chambers of his stomach. You can now hear the bushbuck has heard Hosanna. He's jumped down into the drainage line. The bushbuck saw him. I don't know if he managed to catch anything. I think we should probably go and look. Well, let's go and look, everybody. I'll just sit myself back down in the seat. Quite nice. It's a very difficult area to maneuver in a vehicle. But we'll do our level best. We're very close to the camp, and he just leapt down into this tiny sort of dry riverbed, into this gully. I don't see him. Oh, this is not going to be easy to get into. We can try this way. Here we are, just sitting, of course, with 2 fairly iconic African species in one sighting. It's only just struck me about how special that is. Since I'll just keep an eye going down towards the east there, because if he has missed whatever he went for, that's where he'll go. Let's try and cut in here. This is where he jumped. Hosanna! Did you kill your dinner? Did you? You got him. He went straight in here, hey? You got him. Oh, there he is. I can see him. I can see his tail. He's lying on a tree, actually. We'll get through here. Okay, apparently we're not going to wait till we got to him. Let's go across to Jamie while I attempt not to crash the car.
Alright, while James tries not to crash the car, we're trying not to be completely enveloped in dust. My Ellies wandered further into the swamp, and unfortunately, true to form, it was a bit swampy. I couldn't really follow them. The road that I was going to follow was really properly churned up, and it didn't seem like the best idea. Although one thing I have noticed in being in this part of the triangle for the first time in a while is that this seems to be where the elephants have all fled to. There are huge numbers of them. There's more up over here. I'm going to see what the road is like. I'm concerned it might be just as bad, but let's give it a go. And then as it starts to cool down, we'll look for lions. So while we get a little bit closer to those elephants, James didn't break the car. He's found Hosanna.
Look, he did manage to get something. He's got a scrub hare, finally. I think it's a scrub hare. He's hoisted it into this little log that's 2 feet off the ground. It's not a baby bushbuck, is it? It looks like a scrub hare, yes. It's not going to do a great deal for his fairly large appetite, but it will go some way to assuaging his hunger pangs. We cannot get round the other side, I'm afraid, everybody. In order to do that, we would have to drive through Eggsy's bathroom, out of his front door, and then we might get a better view. And I just don't know about you, but I'm not sure Eggsy would appreciate having a Land Rover tyre mark on his loo seat when he got back. Alrighty, it's really action-packed for just the two of us over here. Jamie has managed to find something I think is extremely cute in the wilderness, a little canid.
Guys, I'm so sorry to take you away from Hosanna, but look at what we found. Oh my goodness, I think these might be some of the youngest jackal pups we've ever put on camera. Oh, tiny little things. Oh, snapping at them. That's weird. Interesting behavior. I don't think that's Mum. I think that's probably an older sibling. But this is incredible. Look at this. Oh, look at that little puppy. Why are you biting them? That's definitely a sibling, not Mum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little jackal puppies. This is magic. We're going to share this with a wider audience if they stick around. Don't disappear. Please don't disappear. I thought the jackal was hanging out with a group of mongoose. I was so confused. Okay, now this is cool. This is so cool. Fascinating behavior from this jackal. Oh, bounce, bounce. I wonder how relaxed they are around vehicles. They seem to be quite calm with us. No, don't take them away. Don't take them away. Alrighty. Look at this. This is absolutely incredible, and a very warm welcome to those of you joining us from across the globe. We have something so special and so rare to share with you. It is a group of 5 black-backed jackal puppies, and we're showing them to you live from the Masai Mara in Kenya. Now we're going to have to approach this very carefully, very slowly, because we don't want them to disappear. I'm not sure how relaxed they are. My name is Jamie. This evening Archie is on camera with me, and as I said, what we're seeing here is so rare to be able to witness. Now these pups are just a few weeks old. They will have just started coming out of the den, and in fact I think there is a den here, a little hole where the puppies are being kept secret and safe. There they are. I can see them. Hold on. Now remember, you're watching this 100% live, which means that you can actually send through your questions in the comments section below. Have you ever in your life seen anything that adorable? Starting to explore the world properly for the first time, playing with each other just like dogs might. And basically, for those of you that are unfamiliar with jackal, it's kind of like our equivalent of a fox, essentially. Oh, there's the den. I just saw one of the pups disappear into the hole.
Rosamond, jackal parents, not just jackal moms, are incredibly protective. It's one of the things that I love the most about jackals. They are monogamous, in other words, they pair for life if they can. Look at this one playing tug-of-war with a stick. And both parents, even when faced with lions or other potential threats, will try and distract the larger predators to draw their attention away from their puppies. So both parents take responsibility for the pups. Not only that, but older siblings as well. They will also try and learn parenting skills once they're grown up. They'll stay with their parents and they'll form little family groups and they'll actually help their parents to look after the puppies. Oh, wow. It is very rare to have the opportunity to see jackal pups of this age. Carmen, you say that they are truly adorable. They are fierce little predators in their own right. Okay, maybe not just yet. But they've already got those very sharp puppy teeth. Those of you who've ever had puppies or kittens, you'll know just how needle sharp those teeth are. So these little chaps, when they grow up and become adults, will feed on a vast variety of different things, including rodents and insects, sometimes even fruit. But they can actually hunt as well, and particularly here in the Masai Mara, we've seen jackals hunting a tiny antelope, baby antelope. These pups have got a little way to go before they are able to tackle something of that size. They're still not straying far from the den. Luke, no, 5 in a litter is actually not that many for a jackal. Typically dog species as a general rule, so belonging to the canid family, perhaps not dog, but belonging to the Canidae family, will have more offspring than, say, the big cats might. So wild dogs, for example, can have up to 10, even more pups in a litter. Wolves will often have lots of pups, and the same applies for jackal. Oh, look at that face, my goodness. Pure innocence right there. Or maybe not. Pure mischief, perhaps. This is a widely unappreciated animal. Yes, Kelly, there was an adult here a moment ago, so their colouring does change. I can't see the... Oh, look! I can't see the adult anymore, but if we sit quietly, we should see the adults come back. As I said, these guys are black-backed jackal puppies, so they will go a sort of tawny colour with a black saddle over the tops of their backs. So their colouring does change. At the moment, they are fluffy and young and ideally camouflaged for this sort of ecosystem, for this sort of grass. Just to give you an idea of how big they are, oh goodness, they are so tiny. They are probably about the size of a ferret, for an animal that most of you will know, possibly even smaller, and already so bold. There's one on the right that has already taken itself off away from the entrance to the den and is sitting all by its little lonesome. Careful, little puppy. There's lots of dangers out here in the Masai Mara. They're small enough at the moment to be taken by anything, a bird of prey, for example, a leopard, even some of the smaller cat species. I know, Carla. Cute little round bellies. Their parents are obviously doing really well, keeping them fed and healthy. Those bellies are very round. Oh! Bounce! Ambush! I know I'm cooing slightly, but I can't help it. It's been a long time since I've seen jackal puppies this small. And what's really nice is that they seem to be perfectly comfortable. Kalina, I actually don't know off the top of my head the exact percentage of jackal pups that will survive to adulthood. I imagine, like most predators out here, it's around about a mortality rate of between 50 to 70%, unfortunately. It is a tough, tough world for the predators of the Masai Mara. There are just so many potential dangers. And I've never seen a jackal pair successfully raise more than about 4 pups at a time, and that was in under exceptional circumstances. It's rare for something like that to occur. Already playing with each other, of course. It goes without saying that that play is so important. Jackie want to know how long they will stay with their mothers, so they will be almost fully grown in a couple of months. They grow very, very quickly. So at around about 8 months or so, they'll be ready to move away from mom and dad. However, they might not actually do so. As I mentioned, that some of the siblings will stick around and assist with raising the next generation of pups. Eventually, however, it will come time to disperse, whether it's at a year old or perhaps 2 years old. They'll move off and they'll start a family. Once they've found themselves a mate, they'll start a family of their own. Oh, you're falling on your little wobbly legs. This is phenomenal. So once they are fully grown, they'll be about 6 or 7 kilograms, possibly even a little bit more. But they've still got a long way to go. Oh, I can hear the jackal barking. Awesome. There you go. There's one of the adults. Now that was probably... this one that we're looking at here is probably an older sibling, I think, judging by A, the way that it was reacting with the pups earlier before you all joined us, and B, I think that the adults, I can hear 2 adults calling a little bit away from where we are. What was phenomenal about that was the fact that the pups responded so quickly, immediately dashing below the surface of the ground into the den. That's how strong their survival instinct is. They don't take any chances at all. Now that was probably the adults telling this babysitter or older sibling that they are on their way back. And I'm looking really carefully. I'm trying to see if I can spot the adults off in the distance. How beautiful is that call? High-pitched bark. I love the sound of a black-backed jackal. It sounds almost like this. I suppose it's a bark, but almost like they're singing. I can't see the adults approaching. I'm just going to move ever so slightly because there is another vehicle here in the Masai Mara, so I'm just going to move slightly so that we're not in their way. So I'm keeping quite a large distance from the den site itself. But I think that these pups are very relaxed with people. Here we go. So I can still see the adult over there. I think we should still be able to see it. There we go. All the way over there. Now we just have to wait for the parents to return. So special. Absolutely fun. Awesome stuff. Liliana, apparently your dogs are now barking at the jackal. I'm glad that we could get such a enthusiastic response out of your dogs. I can only imagine. I mean, they must recognize that bark for what it is. It's very, very high-pitched, very piercing, which means that it does travel. I'm still looking. The pups haven't come back out of the den, unfortunately, but that's the direction that the adults were barking from. I'm sure they must be coming. I can't work out exactly how far away they were. the wilds of the Masai Mara, you'll see there's a camp in the distance, a lodge where you can come and stay. No sign of the adults returning with dinner yet, so I think it's time for us to say goodbye to most of you who have joined us. Thank you so much. I'm so glad we could share those tiny little jackal pups with you live from the wilderness. So if you would like to continue watching your safari, all you have to do is Google SafariLive. We've still got a whole other hour, I think, ahead of us, and we're on every single day. If you want to share more precious moments just like this. For now, thank you for joining us, and we hope to continue your safari soon. So cool. Alrighty, for the rest of you, we completely disrupted James's train of thought with Hosanna. We'd better send you back across to him before he gets upset with us.
Before who gets upset? Me? No, I'm not getting upset at all. I think that looking at brand new jackal pups is a brilliant idea. And here is Hosanna. He's turned round. He's been a bit gory today. He's eaten off the head of the scrub hare. Now he's dispatching the tail. Oh, this is not going to be pretty. If you are a sensitive viewer, I do apologise. We have a school drive coming up. I hope he's going to have finished doing all of that by the time we get to them. He's now got a beard of rabbit fur. And he did his trick with the intestines again, where he emptied them of their contents and then ate the stomach lining and the intestinal wall, which of course is nutritious. And now he's going in through the back end to get at the rest of the meat, clearing off. Well, the tail's going to go soon. He's doing a very good job of taking the hair off. Oh, goodness gracious me. I know that this might be a little rough for some of you to watch, but he did need to eat. He really did. And I have to tell you, if there's one species out here that is in no danger of going extinct, it is the scrub hare. And I'm sure many of you found it as amusing as I did to see him with his rabbit fur goatee. You see how difficult it is to spit when you don't have a jaw as movable as ours, or lips as movable as ours. He's got to let gravity do the work for him. Now he looks like he's got a little Viking beard. There we go. Well done, boy. We are laughing at you, yes. In fact, there are probably in excess of 2,000 people laughing at you at the moment. That need not worry you. Sun's just gone down, and so now that little breeze comes up. Probably be still again in about 20 minutes. What a drive we've had. I was a little worried when Brent phoned me earlier and said, you know, Manu's been stung in the eye. It's just going to be the two of you today. And I thought, well, if we have a very quiet afternoon here, well, Jamie's going to be on her own. But thankfully, we've all had lots to show you, which is fantastic. I'm sorry about the stick in the way. There's nothing I can do about that, I'm afraid. Yes, Marianne, Hosanna has got a hairy chin. That's actually quite good. I didn't think of it. I wish I had it. One of those wonderfully obvious jokes that nobody thinks of, except the clever ones. Well done, Marianne. Now he's into the rib cage is what I meant to say before a frog got caught in my throat. There's a little bit of intestine there. That's the back end of the intestine. You can see that the pellets are there ready to come out. That's amazing to see. Did you see that, everybody? It looked like a little sort of a tube of beads, if you like. Yes, now he's thinking that that little tube of beads wasn't very delicious. I've never eaten rabbit pie, but I believe that it's very popular in Italy and France. Sebastian says it's okay. It's not great, though. I'm not sure if anyone else has eaten rabbit pie. Alexandra, who's sitting in the final control, obviously with a horrified look on her face, says it's nasty. I'm not sure why rabbit pie should be nasty. I don't think Hosanna thinks it's nasty in the slightest. I think he is the very happiest cat in all the Sabi Sands right now. This will assuage his hunger for a little while, probably last him about a day. Yeah, Umka, he is eating the bones. We were just discussing this off air, and they do eat the bones. They will digest all of the small bones, and in fact, if you watch him eat a duiker, he will eat just about all of the bones except the biggest bones like the jaw. He probably wouldn't eat, but he'd eat even most of the jaw, the leg bones. Bones are imminently digestible. It's just a question of breaking them open and cracking them up into pieces small enough to digest. But he will definitely eat the bones. They've got lots of calcium and phosphorus and other good things in them. And if you're purely a meat eater, of course, and you're not an omnivorous organism like us, well, then you do need to try and get as much in the way of varied nutrition from your carcasses as possible. So the bones are important. The hair he will not be able to digest. It's made of keratin. But the bones he will. All of the organs, each of them contain little bits of nutrition that he needs. The meat is obviously useful. The fat especially useful. And he's so dainty the way he eats in some ways, and so, well, fairly brutal in other ways. But I don't think that this bunny is going to make it to the school show, or is it? 3 minutes to the school show. Kirsten, can you confirm, are we allowed to show this to the kids? Are we finding out if we're able to show this to the kids? Oh, they're 10 to 11, that should be fine. They're surely not about to have a panic attack about something like this. Oh, here we go. No information yet. Margarita, there's not a lot of blood because he seemed to have drunk it all. He bit the head off, literally, bit the head off, swallowed it, ate the ears, and then there was quite a lot of blood coming out, and he kind of lapped it all up. And I suppose most of it is finished. There'll be a little patch probably on the tree below him. We're just finding out from the teacher if she's prepared to allow us to show this to her kids. She may, of course, be afraid that a bevy of parents will come into the school armed with 5 or 6 lawyers each. Oh, she's fine with it. Good soul. Well done. Okay, well, we're going to welcome them in 1 minute as Hosanna has a little vomit. Oh, they're already watching. Hello, Lake Charter School. It's wonderful to have you with us. We're sitting here in South Africa with a male leopard. He's just killed himself a scrub hare, which is like a rabbit. It's a little bit sad for the scrub hare, of course, but for the leopard, it's very much needed as a dinner meal. My name is James, as you've just seen. Sen's always on camera, and would love you to ask as many questions as you can. You can just ask your teacher. She will ask us, or he will ask us, and we will do our very best to answer any of your questions that we have. I'm sitting here in the Western Kruger National Park with Hosanna, the male leopard, a 2.5-year-old male leopard, and in the Masai Mara we have Jamie, and she's going to show you some interesting things once we've had enough of watching Hosanna. Well, all of you are wondering in your classroom how often leopards get up in trees. Well, he's in a tree, sort of. This tree has fallen over a gully, or a donga, as we call them in this part of the world, and he's sitting on it because it's just a comfortable place to eat. There isn't dirt there. They don't normally spend too much time in trees unless they are running away from something. So, if he was set upon by wild dogs or lions, he'd run up a tree. Otherwise, they normally stay on the ground. The other reason they go up into the trees is if they have a kill and they're worried that hyenas might try and steal it. Well, then they might take it up into the tree and feed in the tree. They don't often rest in trees because if you look at the bark of this tree, for example, it's very spiky. And you can imagine trying to lie comfortably there and have a sleep, and it just wouldn't be the most comfortable place in the world. So normally they'll only go up trees if they've got some food there, or if they're trying desperately to get away from a threat, like a hyena, a wild dog, or a lion. Now, I said we were going to be joined by Jamie. Jamie is in the Masai Mara of Kenya, where it's an hour later than it is here in South Africa. She is sitting not with a cat, but with a dog.
Hello and welcome to the Masai Mara of Kenya, where we have a very special and very charismatic little animal that is hiding in the grass. But first, a warm welcome to the students joining us. It is fantastic to have you on board, and I hope that you are really excited to go on safari. So as James has told you, I'm in a completely different country to where he is. I am in East Africa in a country called Kenya, and to be more specifically in a part of Kenya called the Masai Mara. Now, we are watching this jackal that is tucked away in the grass, and the reason that we're so excited to see this black-backed jackal, and it's basically kind of like an African fox, or a fox that, or a type of animal that looks a lot like a fox. Now, it's curled up over here. Now, the whole class is wondering what it is that jackals eat. They are very, very clever little animals. They eat all sorts of things. There you go, you can see its enormous ears. All sorts of things. They eat rodents, and they eat little insects, and sometimes they even eat fruit. But they are mainly carnivores. So if they can catch rodents, sometimes they will scavenge. They're very brave little animals. So sometimes they will even sneak up to lions that are eating a zebra or a wildebeest or a buffalo, and they'll actually steal pieces of the lion's meal because they're so quick and so small that the lion can't actually catch them. So they're an animal that has learned to survive, even though they're quite small compared to some of the other predators in the Mara. Now, the reason that we were so excited earlier, but I think unfortunately they're going to stay hidden, is that this is an adult jackal, but hidden in a hole down to the right of her is a litter of 5 jackal puppies. Now, a bit earlier on, we heard the jackals barking in alarm, and I think that they were calling to each other just to let each other know where they are. So I don't think that the puppies are going to come out again, unfortunately. And perhaps one of the reasons for that is that I've heard that there's a lion somewhere. Elliot, while we look at this jackal, you want to know how big the jackal's den is. Again, a jackal is a clever animal, and it uses the holes that have been dug by animals like aardvarks or perhaps warthogs. So it can actually be several meters deep, a good 10 feet or so, possibly even more. It may even have tunnels that connect to each other. Oh, she looked across briefly. I was hoping maybe the pups might come out. I don't think so, though. Now, it is getting dark here in the Masai Mara, so I don't want to stay for too long. These puppies are so tiny still that it will be a little bit dangerous. We don't want to distract them as it gets dark. Now, there's all sorts of predators that could catch a baby jackal. One is a lion, another is a leopard, just like Hosanna.
Now he's finished his meal, everybody, which means we don't have to look at him trying to eat, which is, I think, probably a good thing. It looked a little bit disgusting. And like most cats, I'm sure some of you have got house cats at home, like most of them, this leopard will be very fastidious in how he cleans himself. You can see he's licking his paws clean of blood, and he's now using his paws to wipe his face clear of blood. Cassandra, you want to know if it's fun watching animals? No, I really dislike it. It's the worst thing in the world. I wish that I was sitting in a bank, rather, working in front of a computer, sitting out here in the fresh air with all of this beautiful vegetation around me in front of a gorgeous cat like this. Oh, it's just terrible. Cassandra, I'm obviously lying to you. It is the best job in the world to sit in a place like this and look at beautiful animals. This is what I get to do every single day. I don't have to get in a car and drive to work. I am in a car, but I'm actually at work immediately. All of you are wondering what he likes to eat. Well, he likes to eat scrub hares, as you've seen. He'll eat squirrels. I've seen him eat squirrels. He'll eat terrapins, which are freshwater turtles that we find out here. He'll eat fish sometimes, but mostly he likes to eat small antelope. And those would include animals like duiker, steenbok, sometimes impala, which are a little bit bigger, and even things like nyala, which are bigger still. A nyala, a big nyala, will weigh close to 200 pounds, and that's probably about the biggest animal that he's able to catch. Mrs. Homer, it's very difficult to say how much a leopard eats every day, A, because we don't follow them all day long, and B, because on some days they will eat nothing, and some days they will eat a lot. So, for example, let's pretend he kills a female impala, which will weigh in the region of 50 kilograms or so, which is about 110 pounds. That would last him, if no hyena stole it, or perhaps another leopard came and tried to steal it. If that didn't happen, it would last him, I would say, a good 4 or 5 days. And then he might not eat again for another 3 or 4 days. If he ate something like the scrub hare, he's going to be hungry again, probably, if not in a couple of hours, certainly by the time morning comes along. And he was very hungry when he killed it, so I think you'll probably find that he will do some hunting later on this evening. So it's very difficult to say how much a leopard needs to eat every day. Mary Claire, leopards do not have their... Well, they do. They do have their own language in many respects. It's not a complicated language, we don't think, like ours, where there are over, I think, something silly like 500,000 words in the English language. Leopards have a language of sorts. They growl at each other. They make a chuffing sound, which sounds like this. They make that sort of sound at each other. They can make a sawing roar, if you like. It goes like this. That's much louder than I've just made. And then they communicate with their urine, believe it or not. They leave scent, and that's a way of talking. It's a way of communicating, a way of language. And then they use their body language when they meet each other. They'll lift their tails up or put their tails down, and pick their heads up and put their heads down, and those gestures mean different things. And so, yes, they do have a language. It's not as complicated as ours, but absolutely they have a language. It's a really good question. Of course, all animals have a language of sorts, and sometimes even different animals can understand each other's languages. So you can perhaps hear that squirrel going. What that is an alarm call, and it's a squirrel. Here he comes back up to where the scrub hare was. It's a squirrel shouting at him and warning the other animals around here that there is a predator in the area. And so a duiker or a steenbok or an impala or a bushbuck will understand from the squirrel that there is a predator nearby. All of you wondering how long I've been a guide and how I became a guide. Well, everybody, if you want to be a guide, I guess I'm a good example of how somebody who has no experience can become a guide through a little bit of hard work and application. So I've been a guide, I don't know, roughly on and off for about 17 or 18 years, which is longer than all of you have been alive, of course. But when I started, I knew nothing at all. I just knew that I wanted to live in a beautiful place. And luckily, somebody said, well, we think that you can think a little bit, so we'll let you come here and learn about the animals and the plants and the birds and the insects and the geology and the vegetation, and then we'll see if you can communicate that to various people, which I managed to do. So you don't actually need any formal qualifications. You've got to get a license in this country, which I managed to get. It's not very hard. To be a good guide, you need a bit more than just the basic license. But anyone can do this, you know. All you need is a real love of the wilderness and a real love of animals and a real love of communicating your love of the wilderness to people. And that's all you need. It's like many things in this world. Mostly what you need is dedication and an enjoyment for that thing. Now, this cat is moving straight towards our camp, believe it or not. And you can see how beautifully camouflaged it is. The leopard is still in picture, but you can't see him. There he is. Now he's moving towards the camp, and so we're going to tell everybody to stay indoors, and then we're probably going to go and see if we can't find a lion or two. We had some earlier on. Leon, you want to know if cheetahs and lions and leopards eat all of the animals in their environment? No, they don't. There are always many more prey animals than there are predators. So no, they don't manage to eat them all. They certainly help to keep populations down and controlled. They play a very important role in keeping antelope populations down, scrub hare populations down. But they don't eat absolutely everything around. No, in fact, you've got to be pretty unlucky to be caught by a predator if you're a scrub hare or an antelope. We're going to go and see if we can find some lions. There were some found earlier this morning. We actually saw them on foot. In the meantime, let's go back up to the Masai Mara, where Jamie is, of course, driving around in the darkness with a spotlight.
The idea is for me to find some lions as well. That's what I'm trying to do. Aha! I see something up in the road ahead of me. So what I'm doing is, I see two things up in the road ahead of me. I don't think it's lions though. Well, let's go see. Let's go find out what we've spotted. So what I'm doing is I'm using a spotlight to light up around me so that I can see things that aren't necessarily in the road. Now, all animals have a reflective layer in the back, or at least the animals that we're looking for have a reflective layer at the back of their eyes. Oh, I think we're going to get lucky. I think we've got lucky. And that essentially, there's so many of them. I can't wait to show you what we found. That essentially, particularly for lions, helps to basically reflect all the light around them so that they can see really well in the dark. And that's important because lions wake up in the dark. And now, what we've got for you is an entire pride in front of us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Lots of lions. All right. So I'm going to switch off my headlights now so that we don't disturb them because there's quite a few cubs here. Look at this. Ismail, now you'll see that this cub might show a little bit of interest in us, and that's okay. You want to know if it's safe for us to be this close to such dangerous animals. And the answer to that is yes, provided that we always remember that they are wild animals. So these are some really young lions, and they've grown up from very, very small. Here's one of the adult lioness. From very small, seeing safari vehicles around them. And they don't think of us as food, and they're not afraid of us because we don't behave in a threatening manner. How sweet is this? Get the lioness playing with the cub. Beautiful. They don't see us as food, but we must always remember that they are wild animals and that they can be dangerous. So it's important that we're always looking at their body language, making sure that we don't drive into their space, make them feel frightened or upset or angry. And that's really on us because we are privileged enough to be sharing their home with them.
So it's important that we remain absolutely respectful. See, look how many lions we have. I'm so excited that we're able to show you these lions. Ricky, no, we don't name all of the animals, and in fact, we name only certain animals if they don't already have a name. So there's lots of safari vehicles out here and guides. They often name the lions or the lion prides, but it's very difficult in a lion pride to keep track of all of the females, and so not every single female is necessarily given a name. She's missing the tip of her tail. So I think this is the Mara River Pride, but I'm not 100% certain because these are not lions that I recognize from this area. Now, Sienna, you want to know how many lions there are in a pride. It depends on how well the pride is doing at any one point in time. So a pride can be made up of 2 lionesses, or it can be made up of up to 20, even 30 lions in a really big pride. So it depends. A pride of lions, remember, a pride of lions is made up of only females and their cubs. Once the male cubs reach a certain age, around about 3 years old, then they actually leave the pride and go off in search of their own territory. So a male is not part of a lion pride. He's separate, or a group of males is separate to a lion pride. Now, their eyes look kind of scary, but remember what I told you about that reflective layer? It's nothing to be scared about. It's just because of the way that we're watching them, using a type of light called infrared that doesn't in any way affect them. No, that's a very good question, Liam. Not all big cats are apex predators. So the lions of the Masai Mara, or actually pretty much anywhere where lions occur in Africa, are absolutely the apex predators. That means they are the top predators. Another top predator out here is the spotted hyena. Look, this cub's going to pounce. It's getting ready. It's practicing its stalking skills on its sibling. But some big cats, like for example cheetah, wouldn't really count as an apex predator. Now a cheetah is quite a small big cat, so it doesn't really sit right at the top of the food chain. It often gets killed by things like lions, sometimes even leopards, so it doesn't really count as an apex, as a top predator. But lions, yes, absolutely. Look at them pulling each other's tails. This playfulness is really, really important in their lives because it helps to develop the skills that they're going to need one day to actually be able to go out and hunt for themselves. At the moment, the lionesses are doing all of the protecting and the feeding, but at some point, these cubs will have to be able to hunt for themselves. Sorry about that, guys. Now, Ella, you want to know how much sleep lions will get on an average day. And the answer to that is usually quite a lot, especially for big male lions that have established themselves. Oh, shame that one cub's being properly bullied. And that have food around. So if lions have food and they are quite full, then they can sleep for up to 20, even 22 hours in a day. But if the lions are hungry, we often talk about lions sleeping all the time. That's not really true because we followed these lions all through the night. And they're usually busy if they're hungry, and especially the females with cubs, for most of the night. So in that case, they're only really sleeping about 12 hours of the day. These cubs are getting big now. Lots of play practice. another very good question. I'm really very, very impressed with the questions that you guys are sending through. Angela, the way that lions choose a mate, it's complicated. They don't necessarily, the females don't necessarily get much of a choice. Remember how I said that the males will not be part of the pride? They have a territory that overlaps with the territory of several different groups of females, and the females will mate with the males inside their territory. Does that make sense? So essentially, if there is a male and it's dominant, the females will mate with it. However, if there's a male that sneaks in, the female might still mate with it, and there's some research that seems to suggest that lionesses like male lions with big dark manes. So if they can, they will try and mate with a male that looks like it would provide really good genes for the cubs that she will then produce. So there's a little bit of choice, but ultimately for lionesses, they have to be sensible, and they have to mate with the males that are dominant over their territory so that their cubs will be protected. Because any male that comes upon cubs belonging to a female that he hasn't mated with will actually kill those cubs. It's a very sad thing, but it is the reality of the way that life works in the lion world. Let's just watch this lioness. She seems to have seen something. It might just be one of the other lionesses. They are looking a little bit hungry. Tiffany, while our lions might actually be moving off to go hunting, lions will have to eat around about, probably to be full, they can eat up to 20% of their body weight. So you're looking at between 15 and 20 kilograms if they're really eating properly. That's a lot of food. And that's just in one sitting. So all predators out here are capable of basically gorging themselves. In other words, eating past the point where you or I might think that we're full, and just eating and eating and eating and eating and eating and eating. And the reason that they do that is because they never know when the next meal is going to come from, or where it's going to come from, or when it's going to happen. So they have to eat as much as possible, because they'll go for 2 to 3 days without food, sometimes up to a week, and they get really hungry after that. So a lion, a big male lion, can eat a massive amount of food. Now, Zed, we've spoken about the fact that lions are apex predators and therefore have no real natural predators. But you want to know what's the biggest thing that they could actually eat. And the answer to that is a giraffe. Or maybe an elephant. So certain lions have become good at hunting young elephants. It's very rare, and they only do it when they're really, really hungry. But they're also quite good at catching giraffe, and giraffe are a little bit easier than elephants, because what the lions have to do is they just have to make the giraffe trip, and if the giraffe trips and falls, then they can go and they can catch it and kill it. But that's quite rare. Most of the time, the biggest thing that you'll find lions catching will be buffalo. But again, it depends on how many lions are in a pride. If it's a small pride, hunting buffalo is very dangerous, so they might not want to risk it. So they might choose to hunt an antelope instead, or a zebra. Devon, yes, but it is quite rare. So Devon wants to know if lions will eat other lions. It does happen. There are situations where, for example, if a female has lost her cubs because she's too hungry and she can't keep them well fed, she might eat them. And that sounds really horrible, but she'll do that because she's basically got to replenish her body so that she can have more cubs in the future. Sometimes males have been known to feed off females, but it's rare. And they only really do it if they're hungry or as a sign of dominance over an area. So it is quite unusual, but yes, lions will eat other lions. They might also eat a leopard, they might also eat a cheetah. I'm just going to use my light quickly just to check and see where the adults have gone. Okay, so I'm going to figure out whether to follow the others or whether to stay with these lions. Let's go find out how James is getting on in South Africa.
We've also got some lions, and they seem to be hunting just up ahead there. Look, you can just see them in the woodland. Now, this terrain is very different, of course, from the terrain you've seen in East Africa. It's much more closed. This is woodland. And in this woodland, the lions hunt slightly differently. They must ambush their prey very carefully. Well, that's a very good question, all of you, about how we know where to drive. We have a network that we speak to on the radio. So if somebody bumps into these lions, like Johan did, I say, Johan, where are the lions? And he tells me where they are. And then we have a kind of, I guess, internal map in our minds of this area, because it's on such and such a road. I just came to the road, and then there the lions were. It can be quite difficult, but it's not impossible. So they are hunting. They haven't seen anything just yet. They'll stop every so often and then listen. Well, I don't know the answer to that question. I don't think they mind being watched right now. I think they would move away if they did. They could always just run away and we wouldn't be able to keep up with them, because this is in quite thick bush. And like that leopard today, he could easily just hide if he didn't want to see us. Sometimes I think they mind, but then I think they tell us and they just either go away or they give us a little growl or something like that, and then we have to move away. But they know that we're here. Do they know we're watching them? I don't know. But they definitely know that we are here with them. And this is quite a famous pride of lions. It's called the Nkuhuma Pride. There are 11 of them. Angela, well, that's the joy of being a lion. You see there they are moving nicely there. The joy of being a lion, Angela, is that everything else is afraid of them, except maybe elephants. Elephants don't like them, but they're not that afraid of them. And so when they sleep, they don't have to worry about intruders, unless they're on their own or there are some strange male lions around. But lions are one of the very few creatures out here that can sleep as soundly as you and I sleep in our beds at night. Most other creatures, like that leopard that we saw, like the jackals, will have to be awake now and then. Otherwise, some intruder could get hold of them. They lift their heads and look all the time, and if something moves in the bush, they'll hear it almost always. And then, well, when they hear it, they'll wake up. Lions, you can sometimes walk past without them even moving. Zed, I'm not really sure how to answer your question. You want to know how lions play? Well, Zed, lions play, I guess. Are you asking sort of in what way do they play? They jump around on each other in the same way, I guess, that dogs play with each other, same kind of thing. We'll just see if we can get through here. Johan, do you think we can get through? Okay, okay. Johan is the guy who found them. And we're just going to see if we can get through this little gully, this drainage line river system here. We might get stuck, and that'll be quite fun. It's always quite fun to get stuck. Yeah, I think we'll get through fine here. Lions have crossed over here. Oh, I hope we don't get stuck. Just put it in the right gear. Hope that we are driving skillfully enough. Whoops, daisies. Let's go across to Jamie now, I think, while we try and get out of here and catch up with our lions.
Now, a safari can be about a lot of different things, depending on what you want to see.
But in my mind, when I'm taking you guys on safari, I want to show you as many different things as I possibly can. So since James is following the lions, and unfortunately my lions are going into quite a boggy area, in other words, a very wet swamp, I'm going to look for other animals to find for you. And I'm sorry I missed your name, but we have a question about which animal it is the most common to see out here. Oh, probably the most Gia. Sorry Gia, I didn't mean to not get your name right. Gia, probably the most common animal is a mammal, is an impala. We see lots and lots and lots of impala, both in South Africa and here in the Mara. But at the moment, because we're in Kenya, there's actually something called the Great Migration happening, which you might know about. Maybe you've watched documentaries or you've heard about it. Maybe you've even been to see it. But essentially, about 1.5 million wildebeest move, which is a type of antelope, by the way, move all the way from the Serengeti, which is in Tanzania, which is a different country to the south, move all the way up here into the Masai Mara. So that's a very common animal to see. But remember, there's also birds. We see lots of different types of birds. At the moment, we're seeing something called lots of something called the bald ibis. Oh, cool. See, this is what I mean. No, don't run away, don't run away. Oh, too late. I think it's gone. Okay, wait, hold on. Let me see if I can sneak up on it. Although there's no sneaking in this car. This was a white-tailed mongoose that I found. And if we hold on a sec, maybe we'll get lucky. I think he's gone into the grass. Oh, where was it? It's hard to judge at night. Let's see if I can see him again. It's hard to sneak around at night in a car, but let me see. No, unfortunately, I think it hid away. That's okay. I'm sure I can find you another one. Looks like it's... Oh, there. Now, Alexis, I'm going to take the light off, see if we can see it. It's quite far away. Alexis, you want to know what my... Oh, look, there it comes. It's running straight towards us. How cool is that? See the white tail? That's how it gets its name. It's kind of like a polecat, perhaps, or a weasel. Sorry, Alexis, I promise I'll get back to your question in a sec. But it's a type of animal called a mongoose. And there are a couple of different species, and it's an animal that I really, really like. And this particular one is nocturnal. Oh, wow, look, you can see the bottom of its foot. So at the moment, it's busy hunting insects and frogs and other things like that. Alexis, it's difficult to choose. Look, it's hunting. It's difficult to choose a favorite animal. I think it's a toss-up, but I really, really like spotted hyenas. I also love spending time with elephants. And when I was a child, when I was about 10 years old, so maybe about around the same age as you guys, my favorite animal was a rhino. So they're still one of my favorite animals. I just find it harder and harder to choose. This is very cool. This white-tailed mongoose is actually busy searching for something to eat. So it will have just come out of its burrow. This is why we love coming out at night. Okay, it's gone behind us. They're very difficult to follow, though. And unfortunately, let me just see. Maybe we'll get lucky. No, I think unfortunately it's going to disappear. Fortunately, James's lions haven't, so we'll send you across while I look for something else.
Look, their ears are up. Can you see they're listening? And what they're listening to is some impala which have spotted them. And the impala are going... They've also spotted something else to the other side, to the right-hand side. There might be something in there that they're hunting. Now, what lions will do in this situation, especially in an experienced pride like this, is that a female will go around to the left-hand side of your picture, See how they're splitting up now? These guys are now lying in ambush. That one that lay down on the road is going to wait, hopefully, for something to be chased towards it. That's a young male. John, if lions could cook, I suppose they may eat cooked meat, but no, they'd rather not eat cooked meat because that's not what their stomachs are able to digest. So they need to have raw meat, and it can be rotting, disgusting meat, but it has to be raw. There's something moving towards them. It could be zebra. It could be wildebeest. Fahad, that is a very clever question. There are, in fact, there is only one lion species in the world. You do get some similar or slightly different lions in the Gir forest of India, but the lions that you see here and the lions up in East Africa are the same species. So there's only one kind of real lion. I suppose the mountain lion in the United States might be described as a lion. Sorry, I said that was a young male. It isn't. It's a young female. I know that because he's not got a mane. He's got no mane development. And while the puma, I suppose, or the mountain lion is a kind of a lion, it's not related to these lions very closely. I think, yeah, there's definitely an ambush going on here. If that's a lion to the left. No, it's not. I think maybe they've given up on this hunt. Let's just keep going. We might be lucky. We've got only the infrared light on that Jamie was explaining to you. Morgan, lions are enormous. A big female lion weigh 120 kilograms, which is some 250 pounds or so. A big male will weigh up to 500 pounds. So they are huge. And they stand, I suppose, about 3 feet at the shoulder. I can't see them anymore. We just need to be careful because what we don't want to do is shine a light on them that will allow their prey to see them coming. So we need to be very sensitive, and I know, well, just staring at me in this light must be a little bit boring, but we're looking for the lions and hoping that we'll be able to see them. Alexis, my favorite animal to watch is something called a wild dog, and that is basically the wolf of Africa. Have you got them? Yeah, I think they've gone off somewhere here. We're just going to quickly turn the spotlight on and see if we can see them. One went off to the right, a few went off to the left, and they seem to have disappeared off hunting. Now this is the danger, of course. Let's move a little bit faster. There they are. They're just through there. The danger of turning your lights off is that you lose them, but if you don't turn your lights off, you can ruin their hunt, and that's not fair. We don't want to do that. Just go around the corner here. Should get another view of them. There they are, right in front of us on the road. See? So we'll turn the lights off again. So they've given up on their hunt. Oh, here some come right next to us. Ishmael, you're wondering why some animals stay awake at night and not go to sleep like us. Well, it's because they have adapted, which means that they are most suited to operating in the night, and lions, of course, are one great example of an animal that is designed to operate in the nighttime. They see much better than us at night. They can see in the dark, and it's much easier for them to catch things to eat if they are around in the darkness rather than in the day. They're very big, you see, and so their prey animals can see them in the day when the sun is bright. Well, that was nice. Here comes another one. That's a beautiful animal. No, Morgan, we must never think that these animals are tame. Although they come close to us, although they are very happy to be around us, they are absolutely wild, which means that if we were to get out and try and pet them, it would be very dangerous for us. They've just got very used to the vehicles, which means they don't react to the vehicles. They don't see us as something to eat. And likewise, they don't see us as something to be afraid of. But as soon as we get out of the car and stand up, well, then that situation changes. And there's another chap with us, everyone, and I'm just going to invite him to drive past us because he's been very patient. Johan, if you want to go past, please go ahead. Ella, hydration is a large word to use. Where do animals get their hydration? They get their hydration, Ella, from water holes. So we've got little water holes around here, but a lot of these animals, especially lions and leopards and that sort of thing, get their water from their prey. So Hosanna, that male leopard that you saw, would have got a lot of water from that scrub hare that he ate. I'm just talking to that fellow on the radio. I'm just going to ask him, or just tell him where they are. Yeah, they're on Zoe's Road, just walking straight down the road. So all of these roads have got names, and you asked earlier how we find them. I'm just helping Johan to get in here. While I do that, let's go back to Jamie, who's got a white-tailed mongoose, which is one of the most special animals you can find at night. We'll carry on following the Nkuhuma Pride on the hunt.
Unfortunately, it's a little bit far away for the reach of our infrared lights. That's my fault, but we've got another white-tailed mongoose. Hold on, we're going to go catch up with it. So we use infrared lights so that we don't disturb the animals, but sometimes we have to find them using normal light. Oh dear, I think it's run away. Where did you go? Often animals... Tiffany, you want to know what is the rarest animal to find? Oh, there's a few. One of them is an animal called a pangolin. Now, a pangolin, there it is, unfortunately, running into the grass. It's not very relaxed, this one. A pangolin is an anteater. There we go. It is an anteater with scales on its back, and it is critically endangered in the wild. And you get different species of it, but you find the same ones here and in South Africa. And most of us have only ever seen a few in our life. And we spend... No, sorry. I think it's gone underground. We spend most of our lives out here searching for wild animals. So pangolin is a good example. Wild dogs are also very rare to see. There's only about just over 500 left in South Africa. That's a very, very small number, and we never really see them in the Mara. There's only one or two that come wandering through every now and again. Then there's certain nocturnal animals that are very secretive, like an aardwolf. An aardwolf is kind of like a miniature hyena, but it eats insects instead of meat. Hello, elephant. Let's see. Elephants don't always like people at night, so let's just see if this one's relaxed with us before we go too close. There we go. It's looking at us. There we go, Rajan. That was perfectly timed. Rajan wants to know what the biggest animal in the area is. Well, you're looking at it. The largest land mammal on the planet. So there's a lot of big animals out here. An elephant, a hippopotamus, a rhinoceros, but the elephant is the biggest of them all. And this big male elephant probably weighs somewhere around 6,000 or so kilograms. So remember how we spoke about them being wild animals? We're going to give him lots of space and let him just walk past us. Hello, my boy. So I'm going to head on off into the night and head on home. We're very lucky to live where we live, in amongst these wild creatures. It's been an absolute pleasure to have the students joining us this afternoon. I hope you enjoyed it. Unfortunately, it is the end and you have to carry on with your school day. For the rest of our regular viewers, thank you so much for joining us. It has been an absolutely joyful afternoon. I hope it doesn't turn into me getting flattened by this elephant. It won't. I'll see you tomorrow on the Sunrise Safari. Bye, everyone.